All right, so now we've got some general animation here. Let's try to continue adding some more animation to this particular element. We're going to click on that layer number 4, which is named B. And again, we're going to take our playhead to 0 seconds, 0 frames. And we're going to select that layer and we're going to hit P to look at the position value. Now, what's interesting about the B is that its initial values are going to indicate that it's well off of the screen. So what we want to do is we want to kind of move it until we kind of see it on the screen. So we're going to take that X value and we're going to drag it, and there you're going to see the B, right? Because we couldn't see it before because it was way off on the extreme margins, because again, the sizes of those layers were much larger than our composition window. So what we're going to do basically is we're going to take that B and I want to place it so that it's just off the screen so I can't see it, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit that stopwatch to drop a keyframe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my playhead out to 1 second, and at 1 second, basically what I want to do is I want to have that B basically fly across the screen. So what I'm going to do is grab that X value now, and I'm going to drag it until the B basically flies out of the other side of the screen, and you can see it puts a new keyframe, and there you have those two values. So there's my B flying across the screen. Again, a simple kind of animation which can create the illusion of motion, which is, basic kind of keyframing, something we like to call tweening, which is basically animation where the computer basically kind of fills in the blanks, if you will. Now that we've got that layer selected, another thing that we want to do is see that B is going to exist through the whole composition, even though after 1 second we never see it again. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our playhead and put it there and select that B layer again. And what we're going to do, now if you're using Mac, it's Option, and then you got to look for the square bracket close. So what happens is I hold Option, I find the square bracket, and it's the right justified square bracket, which is basically going to trim the layer. So now, there's basically no more B after that. And the reason why I want to do that is even if I don't see the B, when I go to render it, if I don't trim that layer, it's still going to render it, which is going to basically kind of mess up my resources, which again, you want to kind of be careful of when you're playing with this stuff. Now, to add a little more realism to what we're doing here, we're also going to do some other cool things. We're going to put some motion blur on. Now, sometimes to see the motion blur switches, you might have to engage this circle over square button, and it gives you some options that probably right now are not necessary because motion blur is actually visible. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn motion blur on, and you can see there's a master motion blur that if it's not on, then the effect doesn't take place. So just make sure that they both come on. So the actual channel there, and then the master motion blur, because sometimes they can be independent of each other. So that basically motion blur is going to add some cool effect to give you, again, just that illusion of stuff moving fast. All right, again, we've made some changes in here, so we can go File, Save As, and we can update our version. I'm up to version number 4, and it is going into my end project file, which is where it should go. So that, again, gives you an idea of what's happening here. I'm going to close up the properties here now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my next layer, which is the artist layer. And what I want to do is I'm going to double click on that artist layer, and I'm going to open it up as a layer so I can see it. Because what I need to do is I need to kind of play around with this. Right now you can see there's a center point, and it's basically dead in the middle of that. What I want to do is I want to take that point, that's an anchor point, and I want to make it so that it sits at the bottom of the car, because that's going to be important for me to create that effect. You'll notice there's a special tool up here called the pan behind tool, which is, I don't want to use the selection tool because that's just going to mess up all the properties, and that's not what I want to do, the position values. What I want to do is I want to take this and move it so it's here. And the reason why I want to do that is because when I start to make changes to the position properties, they're going to be referenced to this anchor point, which is really going to be kind of important for us to get an idea of how that works. So we're just going to basically now we'll, again, if we open up the transform properties, see what I did was I changed the anchor point, and I didn't want to change the position, which is why I use that tool, which is important. So we're going to go to this layer now. Again, I just want to see the position values, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make some values for this car as to where I want it to be. And what I'm going to do now is basically set that car. Now, of course, what I want to do is I don't want to look at the layer, so I'm going to close this. I want to see the car as it relates to in this screen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it and move it into the screen. So I'm going to take it and move it into the center of the screen, okay, which again is going to kind of be where I want it to sit. So we're going to leave our playhead at 1 second, which is basically where when it drives in we want it to be. So what we'll do is we'll use that value there and drop a keyframe, and it's just basically holding that value until we're ready to kind of do some other stuff. So we can close up that property and go File, Save As, and again we're going to update that AEP file. Now again, you might think this is kind of ridiculous that I'm doing this, but trust me, every time you make changes, it is so important to update those changes, because if you don't, you're going to lose work, and that would be a shame, because it will be very frustrating for you. Okay,